So Russia and Ukraine have been in the news a lot recently. Let's talk about that. The fight has been going on since 2014, following the Revolution of Dignity, in which protesters tried to overthrow Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych after he decided to not sign a trade agreement with the EU to opt for closer ties with Russia. Even though it was overwhelmingly agreed upon in the Ukrainian parliament to sign the bill with the EU, the protesters had succeeded and overthrew the previous president, and the new interim government signed the EU agreement, held elections for a new president, and restructured the government in favor of the people. Russia declared the uprising against Yanukovych to be a coup. Russia followed this by annexing Crimea and supporting two separatist uprisings in the Donbas cities Luhansk and Donetsk. The Minsk 1 and 2 agreements signed by Russia and Ukraine in 2014 and 15 were designed to stop the war in Donbas, and while they helped subdue the fighting, it never stopped completely. In 2017, Ukraine applied for a NATO membership, and then in June 2020, Ukraine was granted NATO Enhanced Opportunity Partner status, which is a stepping stone to becoming a full NATO member. Some members of NATO are reluctant to admit Ukraine. According to Stanley Sloan, a scholar in political science at Middlebury College and expert on transatlantic relations, said, quote, "The feeling was, and probably still has been, that Ukraine hadn't completely taken care of political corruption, that it was still developing its democracy, which, along with rising political tensions with Russia, has most likely led to a delay in joining." All right. In 2021-2022, the amount of Russia's military stationed around the border of Ukraine increased drastically. NATO accused Russia of planning an invasion, which President Putin denied. On February 21, 2022, Russia officially recognized the independence of Luhansk and Donetsk. On February 22, 2022, Putin declared that the Minsk agreements no longer existed because of the current Kiev authorities and that they haven't for some time. On February 24, 2022, just 3 days later, Russia invaded Ukraine from the east. At 6 a.m. Moscow time, the day of the invasion, Putin announced a quote-unquote special military operation in a speech.
Чтобы поставить надежный заслон проникновению террористов из Сирии в Россию. Другого способа защитить себя у нас не было. То же самое происходит и сейчас. Нам с вами просто не оставили ни одной другой возможности защитить Россию, наших людей, кроме той, которую мы вынуждены будем использовать сегодня. Обстоятельства требуют от нас решительных и незамедлительных действий. Народные республики Донбасса обратились к России с просьбой о помощи. В связи с этим, в соответствии со статьей 51 части 7 Устава ООН, санкции Совета Федерации России и во исполнение ратифицированных Федеральным собранием 22 февраля сего года договоров о дружбе и взаимопомощи с Донецкой Народной Республикой и Луганской Народной Республикой, мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима. И для этого мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины, а также преданию суду тех, кто совершил многочисленные кровавые преступления против мирных жителей, в том числе и граждан Российской Федерации. При этом в наши планы не входит оккупация украинских территорий. Мы никому и ничего не собираемся навязывать силой.
So, Putin claims that his goal in invading Ukraine is not to take it over, but to cleanse it of Nazis and reduce its military power. Within minutes of Putin's speech at 6 a.m. Moscow time on February 24, 2022, reports of explosions occurred in Ukrainian cities Kiev, Kharkiv, Odessa, and the Donbas region. Ukrainian officials state that missiles were sent to airfields, military headquarters, and military depots. Russian troops were deployed to Odessa and Mariupol. Military vehicles entered Ukraine from Belarus along with troops entering from Crimea. President Zelensky announced martial law at 7 a.m. Moscow time. Fighting ensued all across Ukraine, and at 4 p.m. Moscow time, Russia had control over Chernobyl. By the end of the first day of the invasion, 137 Ukrainians had died. Some of the actions Russia has taken against Ukraine since the February 24th invasion include: on Tuesday, March 1st, Russian forces struck down a TV tower in Ukraine. After this happened, Ukraine's defense ministry warned that the television could temporarily stop, but would return. The attack may have come from a miles-long Russian convoy that was spotted on satellite imagery that appeared to be heading towards Kiev. On March 2nd of 2022, it was reported that Russia had officially captured Kherson, which is the first major city to fall to Russia. Since Russia has captured Kherson, they have increased attacks on cities to the south and east. On March 6th, it was reported that Russian troops shelled Zaporizhzhia, which is Europe's largest nuclear plant. While it is safe now, President Zelensky said that the attack could have caused destruction that would have been equal to 6 Chernobyls. Russia has since taken control of it. In support of Ukraine, many companies like IKEA, Levi's, IBM, Vanguard, HP, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, Zara, Microsoft, Spotify, and many, many others have helped in a multitude of ways, like helping employees flee Ukraine as the conflict escalates, and shutting down operations in Russia, which has been a part of ruining Russia's economy in an attempt for them to stop the war. What I find really interesting is the similarities between the Russia-Ukraine war and the 2008 Russia-Georgian war. Russia backed 2 separatist states in Georgia, South Ossetia, and Abkhazia. President Bush did a press release on the conflict, and this is what he said.
Just met with my national security team to discuss the situation in Georgia. I am deeply concerned by reports that Russian troops have moved beyond the zone of conflict, attacked the Georgian town of Gori, and are threatening the Georgia's capital of Tbilisi. There's evidence that Russian forces may soon begin bombing the civilian airport in the capital city. These reports are accurate. These Russian actions would represent a dramatic and brutal escalation of the conflict in Georgia. And these actions would be inconsistent with assurances we have received from Russia that its objectives were limited to restoring the status quo in South Ossetia that existed before fighting began on August the 6th. It now appears that an effort may be underway to depose Russia's duly elected government. Russia has invaded a sovereign neighboring state and threatens a democratic government elected by its people. Such an action is unacceptable in the 21st century. The Georgian government has accepted the elements of a peace agreement that the Russian government previously said it would be willing to accept: an immediate ceasefire, the withdrawal of forces from the zone of conflict, a return to the military status quo as of August 6th, and a commitment to refrain from using force. There are representatives of the European Union and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe currently in Moscow seeking Russia's agreement to this peace plan. Russia's government must respect Georgia's territorial integrity and sovereignty. The Russian government must reverse the course it appears to be on and accept this peace agreement as a first step toward resolving this conflict. Russia's actions this week have raised serious questions about its intentions in Georgia and the region. These actions have substantially damaged Russia's standing in the world. And these actions jeopardize Russia's relations with the United States and Europe. It is time for Russia to be true to its word and to act to end this crisis. Thank you.
But what does this mean for the future? We asked our friends and family, and here's what they said.
What do you think is going to happen in the Russian and Ukraine conflict?
So we do know Ukraine's fighting back. So what I think is eventually going to happen, Russia is going to get tired of fighting back against Ukraine. So they're going to, use more lethal force to the ground forces, more like, nuclear type stuff. And NATO's eventually going to step in because, at some point they're going to get tired of Russia bullying smaller countries. I heard China's already getting into it, so China might step in themselves too. I think they're definitely not going to get away with it.
What do you think the outcome of the Russian and Ukrainian conflict is going to be?
I think it's gonna probably or most likely get worse, and then eventually NATO is gonna step in, and we're gonna step in.
What do you think the outcome of the Russian-Ukrainian war is going to be?
I think it's a little too early right now to make a decision. It really depends on what happens throughout the rest of the world. Is the rest of the world going to sit back and watch, or is the rest of the world going to pitch in and help? I think, in my humble opinion, it more than likely is going to last a very, very long time. Years.
What do you think the outcome of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict is going to be?
Okay, well, the sanctions that the United States and NATO has put in effect, I'm hoping that they're effective enough to make Vladimir Putin withdraw his troops from Ukraine, but he's too close to the other NATO alliances, which is very bad for him, because if he crosses the line and goes into Poland or anything or any of the other countries, I think they're all going to get together to take Russia down. So we could be like facing another world war. So I'm hoping it doesn't come to it, but there's a good possibility that we may be facing World War III. And the only problem with that is that Russia may get desperate and use nuclear, or he may use chemical weapons against other countries that's pretty much trying to take Russia down. So I hope we can negotiate something to get him to withdraw his troops and stop killing all of the innocent women and babies and other people in that region.